Hey everybody, Perry with Premier Guitar here. As we approach 10 years of shooting the rig rundown with some of the world's best players, I thought it'd be interesting to dig through our archives to find some really cool stories and gear for you guys. In this installment, we're going to take a look at 10 of the most iconic guitarists ever seen on the rig rundown. We're talking Angus Young's Back in Black SG, all the way to Peter Frampton's Phoenix Les Paul. Hope you enjoy our fun little rock and roll history lesson.
All-time favorite is also?
This one is been with me for 30 years now, and the history of this guitar is spotty. When I first moved to Hollywood, I wanted to have a custom-made guitar because Steve Vai and some of my favorites had a custom-made guitar. So I went to a guitar shop with my first check that I got from my first real job, and I plunked, and they skinned me. Like, yeah, I mean, it was a huge ripoff. It was probably the worst guitar that I've ever played. And I chose, but it was my own fault. It's like, I chose the fretboard, and I chose this, that, and the other, but I'm not a luthier. I have no idea whether it should be ash or, I have no idea. So I got this stinky guitar, and over the course of the next, feels like in 1986, over the 87, the course of the next couple years, I tore it apart entirely. The only thing remaining from that original guitar is this piece of wood, right? So it's had a million different necks. This neck I found in a bin, like a throwaway bin at Nadine's Music on Santa Monica Boulevard. It's had different pickups through the years, different whammy pedals, all the electronics are completely different. I put this like fat head thing on the back because I thought it would give it more sustain. It didn't work, but I left it on. And then finally, like I honestly, like, I gave up. I was trying to get a guitar that would be my perfect sound and was banging my head against the wall and just said, I'm going to stop right now. This is going to be my guitar, and I'm just going to create with what I've got.
Make it work.
And that was very liberating because it was no longer chasing sounds. It was embracing the sound I had and using that to make music.
And so that's been essentially the way it's set up.
This
now
is I mean, on all 19
90s.
of my records, this guitar features prominently. You know, every show I've ever played, you know, for thousands of shows, this is the guitar. Has been my main guitar for songs that are in standard tuning.
One thing that Perry had mentioned is, do you go through a lot of toggle switches because what you do?
Well, should I want to see a little toggle demonstration here? So, I mean, one of the things, you know, when I was the DJ in Rage Against the Machine, one thing you have to learn to do when you're a DJ is to scratch.
Yeah.
So at the time when I got this guitar, like the coolest guitars were the Eddie Van Halen ones that had one pickup and one volume knob. So I was stuck with a guitar that had a toggle switch and a bunch of knobs, which was super uncool. So I thought, is there some way to make this work for me?
Yeah.
And the toggle switch thing is, it's basically this pickup is, the volume is turned to 0. So you hear nothing, and then this pickup, it's turned to 10. So when you go between the two, it works as a kill switch, as an on-off switch, right? So if you create some sort of sound and then rhythmically work the toggle switch like you're picking a guitar, you can create sounds that are reminiscent of a DJ scratching. And then by simply adding something like a slide, which is used in a non-traditional manner, in this way, it's just generating any sort of tone with the guitar can then be manipulated with the toggle switch.
Do you ever mess around with different types of slides or like metals or anything, or is that just
No,
kind
I complain sometimes because they're like too chubby, but this one's pretty good right here. This was
What about strings on this one?
Strings on this one, it's custom lights. It's 9 to 45, or 9 to 45, and or 9 to 46.
And what's
light,
the
9 to 46.
reason behind
the reason
that?
behind that is just it seemed to work better with the locking nut for me.
Okay.
And because I'm not tuning down for this, it provides sort of like a springiness in the ease in bending without having the 10s on there. So.
Cool. And I assume those are just EMG.
Yeah, the EMGs, and again,
185s?
all of the much of the riffage in my career is done on the front one, which is it's a single coil disguised as a humbucker.
Oh.
Yeah, it's just like. And then pretty much strictly for soloing do I go to the other.
Gotcha.
Go to the other.
When he was 17 years old, his folks took him on a vacation to New York. He tells me.
Yeah.
And he went down 48th Street. He got him. He read about it or whatever. Went down Fort Manny's and all that. And the '76 Explorer was in a window, and he went, I want that. And
at Manny's
and
or
he didn't tell me which store.
Sam Ash or
He didn't
whatever.
tell me- yeah, one of those, right, man?
Yeah.
So he takes it back to Harlan, and the other three apparently went, what is this? You know, but he loved, even then, as young as he was, the tone of that ball back neck. And there's two productions in '76. There's a January to April, which is less thick, and then there's a April to the December, which is really thick, and it's just done by I know them by serial numbers. So he owns 11 of these now. You know,
and they all roughly in what?
Yes, and they're straight up. They're just straight up. And
what year are they? All roughly the same year?
Yeah,
or?
1976. He only plays 1976 Explorers.
Wow.
And there's kids, you know, they'll send me notes up on stage. I got a 76, and it's so cool, you know.
Does he have you looking for 76s all
Yes,
the time?
yes. Well, anymore, it's toned off a little bit, you know, a little bit. But he let me buy the majority of these guitars and bring them to his attention.
Cool.
You know, but because back in the day, he said all he had when he toured was this guitar in the War and Boy, and then he got a Strat, and that's all he had. Now, I wish I'd have been around for that.
Yeah, right.
But you can hear the sound. I Will Follow, Beautiful Day. Electrico, I think. Right.
So, do you
out of control.
make any modifications to them?
No. I keep the frets dressed. We got a guy, a great cat in Dublin, Derek Nelson, Danville Music. He's Edge and I's go-to guy. He knows exactly the fret type. He knows the actions, which is pretty much a 30-second to a 30-second. But no. Edge believes that when he takes it off of a wall, or I bring it to his attention, that's it. We don't.
Right.
Well, what we're gonna do is, you know, and put a Fat 50 here or something like that. No, he doesn't do that. That's the sound. He stays with it.
Yeah.
And which is unique.
Sure.
But
yeah.
it's also very cool.
Yeah, very
you know,
cool.
He serves the song.
Right.
He does, man.
Yeah.
Bono and him sit down. They write, and of course the lyrics come. But Edge serves the song, and he'll go, let's see, what would best serve single coil, whatever, and he'll use that guitar.
How great.
But then I found this. After having that one for a couple weeks, this came into my life and changed everything about being a guitar player. So this is the Red Eye, 1959 Les Paul. This was Ed King's, and it was his prized guitar in a really good collection. He had a lot of great instruments.
Yeah, no
and,
kidding.
the Carters called me to come in and demo some of the guitars that Ed's widow Sharon brought in after Ed had passed. And I came in and played the Sweet Home Alabama Strat and a couple of other things, and then I saw this on a stand, and I said, is that really the one, you know, is that the original? And they said, yeah, that's it. I was like, can I play it? And they said, well, that's why we put it out here. And I felt myself being tricked.
I was going to say, do you think they
at
knew
that
ahead of time
moment.
you were going to get your hands on
Yeah,
that and take it home?
I thought, okay, I've been duped, but I know that, and I'm okay with it, and I still love these people. But I picked it up, and I got lost on my way home that day, and I couldn't sleep, and I just couldn't stop thinking about this guitar. And so I called my accountant, and she said, no, that's ridiculous. You
can't do
can't
that.
have that guitar. So I called my manager, and I told her, I need you to find me a bunch of weird birthday parties to play this year. No Gaddafis, you know, no terrible people. Just find me some crazy wild private gigs because I have to buy this guitar. And so I got this guitar, and we took the tuners off and we put some period correct new tuners, because the old ones, believe it or not, were still functional and still worked great.
Wow.
And I didn't want either me or my tech Michael to break one of them off and
Right.
have a terrible day. You know, it's like a Toyota Corolla in your hand.
In your
you
hand,
break one
crumbling.
of the, yeah.
Yeah, and that old Bakelite and plastic and stuff is real.
It doesn't
real-
hold up. Yeah, they turn into a dead man's toenails real
This
quick.
actually looks original.
This is original.
Wow.
And then this I switched out because I like to top wrap and I didn't want to scratch it up. And then I think everything else is the way it originally was. The frets have been changed up to somewhere around here. I think Ed had them changed out partially, had a partial refret done, but everything else is what it's supposed to be.
This has got to be the lowest action I've ever seen on a Les Paul.
Yeah,
it's
pretty low.
So low.
And I'll tell you, it does everything I have ever wanted a humbucker guitar to do, you know.
This does that thing, huh?
The middle position on this is very, very special. Even for 1959 Les Pauls, it's a very special middle position. And the neck profile is perfect. You can see, you know, Ed's wedding ring, and there's a couple of little nicks and scratches, but nothing major. Yeah, no real buckle rash.
Yeah, very minimal. That's crazy.
He took care of it. You know, Ed had it for a long time. It was stolen from him and famously returned to him over a decade later. And
so, do they know how this discoloration came to be?
Yes, that was originally, you know, the red all the way around, and then this is where the tag was hanging in the window. And so the UV light faded that aniline dye and took the red out of most of the 58 and 59 Les Pauls. But in 60 they started going to the tomato soup color, which didn't fade, that darker red.
But even, I mean, it's just so beautiful.
It's clean, and I mean, look at the corners on the headstock, like they're sharp.
Still sharp.
Yeah, which is kind of unbelievable.
It's pretty rare, yeah.
But yeah, the nut is original. You know, the selector is original. Somebody somewhere along the line carved a little bit out of the G string to keep it from slipping, which I think still works great. You know, but it's got a double white and a zebra, and then the zebra here I think is overwound. Maybe 600 turns, but also the magnet has weakened over time, so it
they do lose.
Balances it out in a way in that middle position that's just almost impossible to replicate.
Interesting.
But Knopfler's 58 has a red dot here. His is not as pronounced, and then there are a couple more that have them too. But
cool.
That's where they hung the tag at the guitar store and put them in the window.
What a trip.
So yeah, this is. You know, as far as possessions go, that's my prized possession.
Out of curiosity, are you trying to stay off of that guitar at night just to not wear it out?
No.
I mean, it's blowing my mind.
It's
that you
made
even
it
have
60
with you.
years, you know, and I'm trying not to drop it. But other than that, I'm going to use it.
You got the old Kolsch.
Yeah.
You don't have any
that's
trouble
still
with that
kind
ever.
of the best way to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's supposed to be played, you know, and that was. One thing that I talked with Sharon about when I got the guitar was, you know, I'll take it out and play it and tell people it was Ed's and tell people how much you loved it and how magical it is, and it won't go in a vault somewhere.
Yeah, that's real cool, man.
You know, it's in a vault, but you know, not a bank vault.
Right. Not some lawyer's personal collection or something.
Yeah, which is cool. I'm glad those guys like guitars too. But I think something like this, you know, it looks nice, but when you hear it in a room like the Ryman, it really changes. It changes something.
How cool.
Yeah, so that's, I mean, I've got awards and stuff, and I don't go look at those every day, but that I look at every day. I don't have to ask permission
it's such
to play
an
it.
accomplishment to own, right?
It is.
It's gotta be like one
no
of those...
kidding. Like you feel like, other than just like having a family and taking care of them, that's about as good a career accomplishment as you can have as a guitar player, to have an instrument like that, because it's like, I'm never going to outgrow that. I'm never going to get to the point where that is normal to me,
like
to have
owning
that
a Stradivarian
guitar.
violin to
It is.
Fiddle player.
Yeah, it's crazy. That kind of thing. And there aren't, you know, they don't make any more of them. I mean, they do, but not real ones.
Yeah.
What do they say? There were, you know, like 623 made, and there's only a couple thousand left because people have faked them over the years. But that's the real thing now.
So let's start down here with the Turners, and tell us about a little bit about which ones he brings out, the tunings he uses, and kind of how you handle the backup situation for these guitars.
Okay, start with this one, which is number 1. This is the Turner Model 1. Same guitar that Lindsey has been using since the 70s. This particular guitar is strung up with just a regular set of D'Addario 10s, 10 through 46. It's tuned a step and a half up and capoed at the 3rd fret. So it's a little bit higher than most. And that's just for that particular key. That's what works for that song.
And what song has he used that one on?
Uses this on a song called Come.
So on the back, there's a special control. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
This is how the pickup is bolted on. The pickup rotates. So what you do is loosen this screw. You can rotate the pickup to get a slightly different tone and just tighten it back up, and that's how the pickup is mounted into the body of the guitar. So it's a pretty cool feature.
And does Lindsey mess with that too much, or once he kind of finds his sweet spot?
Once we find the sweet spot on the guitar, we bolt it down and never touch it again.
And that's different from guitar to guitar?
It varies a little bit, slightly, but most of the time it's at just a slight angle to where the higher strings hit a little further down the string than the lower. Makes the low strings bite a little bit better.
Well, let's get right into it. We want to know about the guitars,
Okay.
specifically the SGs that Angus is known to use for years.
First off, I want to say that at first I thought I'll pull out 15, 16 of Angus's guitars, but that's not how he works.
Yeah.
Angus is very specific about a couple guitars that he really enjoys, and he'll play them all tour. That's kind of what he does.
Okay.
So I've brought those out, which is my normal daily routine, and I brought one of the new ones that he's been playing, which we use once in a while. So what I want to do is I'll start you right here with his main guitar that he's using this tour.
Alrighty.
Okay. This guitar is a 1967 SG. Okay. He thought it was a little older, but we dated it off the serial number.
Okay.
The pots have been changed 1,000 times because he sweats and these get rusty and you got to change them. So this has all been basically changed. Pickups get changed. Anyways, this is like I said.
Give us some specifics if you can remember the pots and the pickups, because people are going to want to know this.
Well, it's just standard Gibson
Okay,
pots I put
just
back
to make
in.
sure there's no-
500K,
okay.
nothing funky, nothing crazy.
Okay.
Wired standard, just like anybody else would.
Okay.
You know, tones, volumes, 2 pickup, everything works. Nothing funky there. These are custom wound Seymour Duncans. The DC resistance is 7.8, 7.7. So that's kind of important that they're all right around that same kind of vibe, okay? So that really is our consistency.
Do you know, like, would you say, like, a Seymour Duncan pickup that's off the rack that's similar to this is like a JB or a Pearly Gates?
You know, those are hotter, I would say.
Okay.
Now, I'm sure there's going to be 8,000 comments right below my feet
Yeah,
right now.
right.
People going, that guy's an idiot. But there you go.
I'm the idiot.
Yeah, no, maybe we both are. But so you can tell. Like I've replaced these pickups before because again, you know, he sweats and it gets in there.
Yeah.
I've tried everything. There's foam underneath here. These pickups are wax, which is important as well to keep them working through the show.
Okay.
Because otherwise, water, electronics, not so good.
Fizzle fry.
Yeah. So that's this guitar.
All right.
Okay. Like I said, he's had this guitar since we think he said roughly the Let There Be Rock album, so 77. So he's had this guitar a very long time.
And that's standard tuning?
Standard
through
tuning.
night?
We are at 440, straight up just like the records now, and it sings.
It's a rock and roll machine.
It's a serious rock and roll machine.
Before we get on to the next one,
Yeah.
strings
Okay.
specifically?
Strings are all the same.
Okay.
One thing you should probably know that most people probably already know is these guys are creatures of habit. Angus won't change anything if he doesn't have to. These are Ernie Ball 9 Slinkies, 9 to 42, standard gauge, pink amp, pink little.
Yeah.
That's what he uses.
Okay.
Nothing funny. We use Fender extra heavy picks. They say Fender extra heavy on them. That's what they do. That's, it's
simple.
There you go. See, straightforward. Fender
there it
extra
is.
heavy. There it is, everybody. There's the pick. Now he does have picks with his name and his character on it. Those are giveaway picks.
Okay.
These are the real. This is what we play with. Okay,
so if someone gets a Fender extra heavy, that's a special one.
Yeah, and he'll. Another thing is they don't make these anymore like this. These are actually hot stamped.
Oh.
Now they're all silk screen.
Why does he prefer the older ones?
Because he can grab it.
Grab them a little easier.
There's a grip there, which is quite standard. Okay, let's go over here to number 2. This is my favorite.
Why is it your favorite?
Because this is the guitar from the Back in Black tour.
Oh.
So this is like.
Yeah,
you can feel the energy.
I feel
with
like
this guitar.
I shouldn't even be this close.
I know. Don't touch it. Whatever you do, you might. This is amazing, and this guitar is a 1970 SG Custom. This used to have 3 pickups, and it was walnut colored.
Wow.
You can find pictures online of him with this, which is unbelievably cool. And it had the the bar, and it was just really, really cool. He didn't like the 3 pickups after a while. He wanted to change it, so he painted it. You probably cannot see this, but it's been fixed now. There was a square chunk taken out of here That's where he used to put the battery, the wireless pack.
For the
because
Vega.
when he would go out front, people are grabbing at him, and the pack would always get ripped off the strap, or something really funny would happen. So that was perfect. The problem is wireless, electrical, up against sweaty body creates a little bit of an issue. So we repaired that this year. A year ago, January, we fixed that, and this is the guitar that he did basically the whole Back in Black tour on.
Wow.
Now, as far as the recording of the record, I don't know, but he bought this right before they started working on it, so I'm assuming it's on the record as well.
Man, and I mean, obviously they're finished in black, but for both these guitars, they seem pretty clean. Like, I mean, it has surgery in the back.
Okay,
but
if you actually look at these guitars up close, they're kind of funny because it does look really clean, but as you get up close, these guitars, I mean, you see how he is.
Yeah.
He plays these guitars really hard. And so there's a lot of maintenance. So if you can probably see, I mean, it's pretty crusty. And we only change stuff when it's broken.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the, if it ain't broken, don't touch it seriously. And that's what they live by. And it's worked for 40 something years, so I'm not going to change it.
Yeah, right.
So, and let's see what else.
And people had asked about specifically, and maybe you don't know, or maybe you do, is where he rides in the tone knob and the volume.
I do know.
Okay, yeah, because people were always curious about how he rolls that off and on.
What he does is roughly 8 is his rhythm area, but he knows from the stage, he'll find that spot where it's just about to take off, and that's his go-to spot. And once he finds it, he's good to go. And then when he needs more, he's got that extra couple little, and that's a 70s thing. That's what we used to in the 70s. That's what they did. They didn't have all these boost pedals and all this other stuff. They rode volumes, noisy amps, volume off on breaks in between songs. He's still that way. As you'll see when you see his rig, it's pretty much been the same way for a long time.
Years.
Okay, so that's the number 2 guitar. So this is his number 1 this tour. This is his number 2 this tour.
Is this like a backup, or is this one set up for certain songs?
No, it's there is no guitar specific song.
Okay.
This is his guitar. He will play it till it's out of tune. Sometimes he'll look at me and he'll like, "Am I out?" Because he can't. Like, sometimes you're in the moment, you can't tell, and I'll be like, "Yes, come over here." Otherwise I just let him go. So the last show he played every single song but one on this guitar, and it was in tune because he's got a really good touch.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty amazing. So I'll show you the third one here. This is actually a Brian Ray model.
Oh, from Paul McCartney's
From Paul
band.
McCartney's band. Brian gave this to Angus, big Angus fan. He personally said, "I want you to have one of these," and it was made with the Angus's specs. So it's amazing. I put the Seymour Duncans in there. It's the only thing we did to change it. And he uses this one now too. It sounds really, really good, feels good. I mean, the thing about these guitars, every single one of them feels totally different.
I bet.
You grab one, the neck feels right. He grabs another one, the neck's different. And that's just the way they were.
What happened
back
here?
then.
We got a mismatch. Or was that?
No.
Okay.
He likes the
grip.
knurl for the grip. Yeah, so that's what he does there. And like I said, the only thing we've changed, I think, is the pickups, and that's it. I mean, it's a rock machine.
And
So I've got to ask, this is probably the most iconic Les Paul in rock history.
Well, it's one of the good stories. Yeah, it does have a good story.
Come on, spill the details.
Well, I'll try and get to the point. There's a lot of points. So, when I was playing with Humble Pie in 1971 in San Francisco, I had swapped my SG guitar that I was using at the time for a 335 Gibson, and with Humble Pie, we played so loud that every time I turned up for a solo, my solo consisted of which probably would be good now, but then it wasn't so good. So anyway, a friend of mine in the audience said, "Look, I couldn't help but see you've got problems there. We're playing at the Fillmore West for like 3 or 4 nights," and he said, I could bring you a Les Paul. I said, I'm not really big on Les Pauls. You know, I like SGs and stuff. And he said, well, I said, anything's better than this. So he brought it the next. I played it that night, and I don't think my feet touched the ground because it was so great. And it didn't feed back, which was great. And so when I came off stage that night, I just said, I gave it back to him, and Mark Mariana is his name, and from the Bay Area. And he said, I said, I don't think you'd ever sell this, would you? And he said, no. I said, well, that's fine. Thank you so much. He said, no, I'm going to give it to you. So, you know, like jaw dropping. Say that again. So, yes, he gave me this guitar in 1971.
Now,
and,
did it have the 3 pickups in it at
yeah,
that point?
it had just come back from Gibson it was originally a 1954 Black Beauty. So it had the old P90s, the 2 different looking ones, right?
Yeah, the El Nico and the...
yes.
Yeah.
And no middle pickup. And I don't believe it was black. And so he had it. I'm not sure if Mark actually routed it for a 3rd pickup or whether he had Gibson do it, but he sent it back to them and said, look, after he'd done a lot of sanding and the body is thinner than, he was getting off the old paint job, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
The body is a little bit thinner because of his slightly heavy hand, and the neck as well, which is why I love it so much. And so he had them route it for 3 humbuckers, and then he wired it, I believe, the same way as I have it now, which is if you forget about the middle pickup, the selector switch and goes straight to this volume, and this volume is a master volume for these 2, the neck and the bridge position. Sure. Right. So that's there's the bridge. And the neck, and then the 2. And then if we turn that off, there's no switch for the middle position, but if you turn the bottom volume up,
Right.
which gives you a big fat middle strat sound,
Right.
you know. So if you bring it in with, let's see. Got that stratty sound, you know.
Totally.
And so I dial that in whenever I feel like it, you know. And so that's the way it's, and then that's the master tone for these 2, and that's the tone for the center one, so same thing. But anyway, so then I used it from 1970 he gave it to me, not 1971, until 1980, and we went to, so it was on every record I played on my own, other people's projects, and then we went to South America for a tour in 1980, and we'd done Brazil and Argentina, and we were on our way to Panama to see Mr. Noriega at the time, right. And so who we almost saw, unfortunately, we had a day off, so the equipment, we were flying commercially and having the gear underneath, you know. But we went separately because of a day off to Panama, and then the gear went on a cargo plane which crashed in Caracas, Venezuela on takeoff. So the only thing that was salvageable at all was, as usual, the tail of the plane. Well, we were told that everything was, I mean, it was 6-8 hours of just a huge inferno, you know. Wow. Unfortunately, the pilots and the loading people, we lost them. So that was very, very sad. And then I was told, I was having lunch in Panama by my tour manager, we've had a problem, you know, and I said, first thing I said was, oh gosh, does that mean my guitar? He said, yeah. So, and then he told me the tragedy of it all, and the guitar didn't seem to matter anymore at that point. And so I pretty much for the next 30 years mourned it and thought, oh, I bet it sounds like the best guitar in the world, you know. And every Les Paul I picked up sounded, nah, I don't think this is how my, you don't know though.
Right.
You've got no A-B.
Sure.
You know, so anyway, about 4 years ago, I guess now, or more, 5 years ago, when I'll have to work that out because I got it back when Frampton Comes Alive 35 came out, so 5 years ago, just before, maybe 6. So yeah, so and I opened up my peterframpton.com contact Peter here emails, and which I look at them all, and there's an email saying check this out, and there's probably 12 or 15 forensically taken shots of this guitar with its white Seymour Duncans that it had on at the time, and you know, with this here, and I knew it inside out. And as soon as I saw a picture with the pickups out, and I saw the way it had been routed, I've been inside there many times and checked it out and stuff. So I knew it was mine. It was pretty obvious, but I didn't agree with the chap who had it. But there's a sort of gray area there. Someone obviously stole it from we think the guard who was guarding the debris of the plane thought that the guitars, which had obviously made it in the tail of the broken off tail. So they said that there were, this is 30 years later, they said there were like 4 or 5 guitars that made it, and they were all sold, you know. And because when we went down there a week after the crash, they said, oh no, everything went up in flames. So it ended up being played by a musician in Caracas for like 15 years. And then people started saying, that looks an awful lot like, apparently. So then he went down to, he sold it to someone who lived in Curacao. And that's where it ended up. And the son of the person that ended up with it took it to a luthier to be worked on because it wouldn't play very well. And so that was the guy that actually took it apart, took pictures.
Wow,
and
tipped you off?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
So it took another 2 years to convince everybody that was involved that we weren't going to have the FBI waiting at Miami airport for them. And eventually we met here in a hotel in Nashville, and I had, you know, video cameras going. I wanted to get the whole bit, you know. Right. And it walks in the door in this horrible vinyl guitar cover. I wouldn't even call it a case. You know, Peter, here it is. You know, feel the weight, Peter. You know this is the one. And because it is a light Les Paul, it's for a mahogany one. And so then I got it out, and that video is online, and you can see it on FCA 35 video.
Oh, I've got to see it.
Yeah, it's 20 minutes long. So that's how I got it back, and then we went straight from the hotel room. We went straight to Gibson, and verified, you know, everything about it, and they took it apart and said that it was a 54. That you could see where it was originally conceived as a Black Beauty, you know. So.
Wow, you heard it here.
So we're starting with the guitars, and why don't you tell us what we've got here?
We have a 1959 Gretsch 6120. This is Brian's original guitar that he played in the Stray Cats. It was basically in all the videos, and he's had it for a long time. He bought it when he was, you know, just a young kid, and he's broken it back out again in the last year, and sounding great, and just totally digging it.
Now it looks like, has he made some cosmetic changes, like different stickers and different dice on the knobs and stuff?
Yeah, over the years he's you know, changed a couple things here and there. I believe, I'm not really positive, but I think it had originally maybe had a black cat on it at one point in time too. But yeah, this is the baby. This is his pride and joy.
So what's the care regimen for this guitar every day? Does that get special treatment after each show, or special things you have to do with it because it's older, or?
No, I mean, you just take care and maintain it just like it would any other guitar, and change the strings every couple of shows, because Brian has such a nice light touch that he likes worn in strings more, for that sound and tone. But it's basically gets the same treatment as everybody else, and fret dressing every month, or when needed, basically, and yeah.
You said he's pretty particular about the strings and so forth. What brand and gauge is he using right now?
We're using a D'Addario 10 through 46, and basically, Brian, in terms of he likes the older sound of rather than the new string sound. He would rather have me leave these on here for a month.
Have a little slime on it.
And but I don't do that. I do them every 2 shows just in case, just so I don't have to come up on the deck here if I don't have to. It's a good thing.
Can we get a closer look at the saddles there? I'm wondering, are those the stock saddles for his signature model, or do you do anything special with these saddles?
No, there's basically these guitars were set up by TV Jones when Brian brought them out, and he does most of the work for it. So it's basically my maintenance on the road and stuff. But of course that's not original. A lot of things. The zero fret is gone, of course, and the saddles they used to be rollers. So
now these are TV classics in here.
They are, yep.
They look pretty old.
Yeah.
They're all rusty and.
Yeah, each changed them out and done work. I think they have the old covers on them, but I'm pretty sure that they were changed to TV's pickups. But they actually, who knows, they might be the originals. That screw's there because Brian broke this guitar in Japan a long time ago. He went to throw it to the tech at the time and stepped on the cable, and it came a little bit up short, and then decided to toss the neck into the audience. And one of our other techs, Bobby Gilkin, ended up...
Did you have to dive into the crowd to get it back?
Went out there, and the kid was very nervous and shaking and like, oh my God, what do I have in my hands? And but he got it back from him, gave him a bunch of T-shirts and pins and that type of stuff, and he gave it back to us. So.
Do you know who fixed that? Did it go to the Gretsch custom shop, or?
I think TV Jones did it. Brian has been dealing with TV for a long time, and has great trust in him to do a lot of the work for him.
So you can see the crack right there, right?
Yeah.
And is this a screw that wouldn't normally be there, or that would normally be filled in with a little cap or something? Or
yeah, no, I don't think that it definitely wasn't originally there. No, it was like put it back together again, type deal.
Does he feel like it has changed how it plays or sounds at all since that happened?
He did for the longest time. He had it in storage at his house, and just like I said last year, he broke it out again, and I was like, wow, this guitar sounds great again, and I'm going to use this. So he brought it out this last summer on the European tour we did this summer, excuse me, and it stays in tune nice.
Can we start just talking about that guitar? That's the one, right?
Yeah, this guitar is the one that I played at the majority of my sessions on and my solo records. The choice to get the A335 was actually a very practical choice for me. I play a lot of different styles of music, and for me, I wanted to get a guitar that could cover a lot of bags, so I didn't always have to switch to a bebop guitar for this, a blues guitar for that. And this one covers most of the bags that I want to play or was called on to play. So that's how I ended up picking the 335. And the little store I went to in 1969 to buy a 335, it had 3 335s hanging on the wall. And I chose this one out of it because it sounded the best to me, and the rest is really history, isn't it?
It is history.
Yeah.
So literally that was brand new when you bought it?
Brand new.
Wow, one owner guitar.
Yeah, 1969.
So in the beginning it was just kind of a pragmatic thing about not wanting to schlep a ton of gear to sessions.
Yeah, although I ended up carrying everything, but this one seemed to cover most, so I didn't have to keep pulling a new guitar out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Over the years, have you done many modifications to it?
Not really. Obviously the stop tail piece, because it came with the trapeze. Same original pickups.
a number of fret jobs over the years because I've played it so much. And we put in a graphite nut. Long time ago, Mike McGuire said, "You got to try this, man. There's no stick and it won't ever wear out." And it doesn't stick and it doesn't wear out.
Huh.
Other than that, you know, replace the tuning pegs when it needs it, but
wow,
nothing else.
Great. And on your Gibson has released a signature model.
Yeah, I copied this guitar, and it's really cool. They came out really good.
Really? So is it just identical? I mean, do they relic it to look like it, or is it just basically copying the build?
They copied everything and even the color. They call this a Carlton burst. And so that's the label on it, you know.
Wow! What an honor in a.
Yeah, for sure.
Very fitting tribute.
This is number one. Been around for a while. It's obviously a showpiece. I never play it.
No. This is how it all began. This is your signature.
I've worn out 10 sets of frets already, and
on just this one guitar.
Yes. And in fact, this is a new set of stainless frets. Is hopefully going to last longer. And one time I tried industrial ceramic frets on one of my Frankenstein guitars, just in the hopes that I wouldn't have to ever refret my guitar.
It didn't work.
Well, sonically it didn't work, but you know, physically it did. And the Rockwell hardness of the material was so high that they wouldn't have worn out.
So, I mean, of course your fans are going to know this, but for some viewers at home don't know that this guitar was based on a guitar that you made yourself, right?
Yeah, but it's, you know, it's stuff that was standard in the industry. For instance, the neck came from a Telecaster that I got paid for a session with, an old Telecaster. And the Telecaster had been butchered and wasn't stock and been painted over, you know, not by professional. So, you know, it looked like, just to the guy that gave it to me, I think it sort of looked like, you know, not that great of a piece of equipment. But actually, it does say the neck, the body of the Telecaster is what I wanted, because it was a big slab of wood. Once I stripped the paint off, I was like, I could put any pickups I want on this, and I could get the sound of a Gibson, sound of a Fender, and, you know, other things
right.
So I took my Stratocaster neck, and the Stratocaster, I had been having a hard time getting the sounds I wanted. You know what a Stratocaster is really good for and everything, but if you want to emulate, you know, say a Jimmy Page solo, it's just not a Strat thing, you know.
Right.
So here I am, a teenager, just like, well, my dad has hammers and chisels in the tool place, and so started
trial and error.
Yeah, trial and error, putting things together, and I ended up with a stop tail piece from a 12-string guitar that I got this piece at a pawn shop, and it had 12 holes in it, and I only needed 6, so I kept a spare string looped around there because I was breaking my E string a lot, the high, so that I could, you know, quickly change the string. And the Gibson Tune-O-Matic bridge was available as an accessory at our local music store, and then I started with, well, every pickup I could get my hands on I tried in there, and ended up with plastic plates over other holes, and pretty soon I settled on 4 pickups.
Okay.
Arrangement that's very similar to this.
It was like humbucker, single coil, humbucker.
Yes. Very good.
Backstage with the one, Brian May, and his main girl for a long, long time, Red. So we wanted to have you discuss a little bit about your main guitar here. So tell us a little bit about when you first started to build this guitar. Was it something that you wanted to just build a guitar, or were there certain things that the guitars at the time you were playing didn't have that you needed?
The basic thing was I didn't have any money, so I couldn't buy any of those guitars. So I could look at them in brochures, you know, the Fenders and the Gibsons or whatever, even the Hofners, who were the sort of English copies, emulations of those, and I couldn't afford any of them. So it was like, make a guitar, and that's the only way.
Yeah.
So that was it. Having taken up the challenge, it was, let's make something better than anything that's ever been out there, you know, because both me and my dad had that kind of attitude. If it's worth doing to the max, you know. So it became a challenge to try and take the guitar a step forward. And in some ways I think we succeeded, partly by luck, partly by good design, but there's a lot of things about this which became standard later on, which were our ideas. So I'm pretty proud of what we did, out of bits and pieces. As you know, it was made out of all sorts of stuff that was just lying around. I'm actually shocked myself that it's still here. And it's been around the world I don't know how many times now, but she still works. And, with very little maintenance really, except a bit of refinishing by Greg Fryer a few years ago. But yeah, it's never been refretted. I've never had to take the tremor off to do it. I've never had to replace, we replace rollers when they fall off, but never had to replace the unit. So here it is.
And after you'd built this, you feel like you kind of obviously got it right the first time. Did you ever aspire to build more guitars, or once you finally perfected this, you were like, that's it?
Yeah, well, I didn't have time. That's the truth after that. But we designed a couple of others, one of which was a kind of lozenge-shaped guitar, which actually Andrew Guyton has made for me now. It's kind of spade-shaped, which is fun. It's sort of the opposite to the thing that Brian Jones used to play. The spade's the other way around. That works pretty well. And actually, originally I designed this with an F-hole and like a proper semi-acoustic, but I never got around to doing that, and it was too difficult, to be honest, with the technology I had, because it was all hand tools. But recently Andrew Guyton made us one of those. Did you see that?
Yeah.
An arch top, which is beautiful, and it has a pickup in the bridge, so it sounds pretty authentic, acoustic. No, this is the only guitar really that I made and functioned with, and it became a part of me.
What, looking back now, you have all these years of hindsight. Obviously, the decisions you made designing worked, but was there anything that you're like, looking back, had I known something now, I maybe would have tweaked this a little bit with maybe a electronics or a bridge setup or something like that?
No, there isn't really. It had a few tweaks along the way, but really nothing radical. I mean, for instance, I changed the polarity of these pickups so that these two would humbuck when they were in the position that I usually use, when they're in series, in phase. And I arranged it so that when these two were out of phase, they humbuck, which is something pretty unusual. But that's because I use them out of phase a lot, like in the Bohemian Rhapsody solo. So these humbuck in that position. So that entailed turning, I forget which one, turning one of these upside down and changing the polarity. Apart from that, there's been so little ever done to this. Most of the decisions I would stick by now, the fact that we've got pretty much zero friction here because of the rollers, we've got pretty much zero friction here because the strings go almost straight through, which is very unusual, laterally and vertically, and they're located vertically by the 0 fret. And this nut has no bottom to it, so they float in the vertical space on the nut. And that works really well too. The only other thing we changed would be machine heads because they wore out. Yeah. But actually these are much better than the machine heads I originally put on.
Are those locking tuners?
They lock, yeah, which does make a big difference, I have to say. They're nice. I think they're shallows. But most of this is homemade with bits and pieces. Yeah, the neck is Pete probably told you, is a piece of an old fireplace, which was 100 years old at the time, and you can just about see the wormholes that I filled up with matchsticks here. This was all done with hand tools. There's a very solid piece of oak, which is the main strain bearer of the guitar in here, but it's enveloped in veneer, and the main part of the body is hollow, and that's made out of blockboard covered with veneer. Can't speak.
So we were talking a little bit earlier, and we kind of sussed out that it was about 63, 64 when you were building this. You're about 17. It took you about 2 years.
Yeah.
So what was that first gig like when you finished it? You and your dad, you had this. It worked, and you get up on stage and you hit it. Did the lights and whistles and bells chime off, or were you like, oh, we're not done yet?
It was pretty amazing. It was a dream come true. I had been kind of playing it all along at home, as it progressed. But I think the first time it was ever used was at Molesey Boat Club, which is on the banks of the Thames somewhere near Putney, in England. And my group was 1984, and I got up and played it, and it was amazing. It was quite stupendous, and that became my instrument from that day forward. It worked. We were, a lot of our dreams came true, and still does.
And so we have, obviously, the selectors down here for on and off and out of phase. What are some of your favorite settings for this, or some favorite solos when you're playing live?
Well, these are the on-off switches here, off, on, for this pickup, that pickup, and that pickup, and these are the phase switches, as you say. That was an innovation. Nobody had done that at the time, and very few people have now, actually, in fact. A few people took up the design. Basically, my favorite home bass is these two in phase. So it's those two are down and those two are down. This is off. That gives me my basic sort of a great chord sound with the AC30s, and also quite a bit of fatness. Great for soloing. It's great for almost everything, depending on where the volume control is. And of course, the AC30s with the treble booster, as I use them, are kind of infinitely variable as regards saturation. They distort incredibly beautifully, smoothly. So I can find little positions on here where the chords are still clean, but it will sustain. So this is a nice configuration. These two together is fat, very kind of plummy. And I use that just for the very beginning of Bohemian Rhapsody when it's live here. But I very quickly flick them out of phase for the solo, and that gives this real screech, because that's this position. These two down, so these two pickups are on. One's down and one's up. There's a redundancy. I mean, they can be like this or they can be like that, which may make a difference in some places. But they're out of phase and they're humbucking, so there's not too much extraneous noise, which can be a real problem, as you probably know. And they scream. I mean, you just hit them. It obviously helps if you hit somewhere down here, but basically you get such a high cancellation of the fundamental and such an enhancement of those high harmonics that it screeches, it just screams. So all these harmonics will just zoom out without much encouragement. You can encourage them as well, but it gives me that lovely kind of I don't know if I can even describe the sound, but it gives it that that Bohemian Rhapsody solo sound, I guess. These two out of phase give a real kind of crunch. Now, logically, they should give you the most harmonic content in a way, because they're furthest away, and therefore their harmonic content will be the most different. And I use that for Stone Cold Crazy because it's just harsh, and it gives. Strangely enough, it does have a low end too. It has a kind of brown warmth to it as well, which is really good. So if I normally play with a heel of my hand on here, so if I damp it a little bit, that warmth will come out, and it's surprisingly good for soloing. So I use all these combinations. I use this one on its own for just a clang. You know, this gives you a lovely, rich, kind of uncoloured sound. So if I want chords to clang out, like in Now I'm Here, this is what I'll use, and then I can switch this one in once I'm doing the main riff. These two in phase, I don't use very much. It gives you a kind of a sound a bit like a Gibson 335, you know, that sweetness, which some of the blues players have liked, and I occasionally like it, but it's not me. It's too sweet for me. Just has a strange feeling to it. And these two out of phase, not very often. It doesn't really occur to me to use that.
But one day you'll find the right situation.
I mean, I deliberately used every single combination when we were recording Bohemian Rhapsody, just for fun, you know. So every time you hear there's octaves and stuff, and I used every single combination for those, just to get the maximum amount of variation of colour.
And this is still, to this day, Pete was mentioning that, 98% of the show is on this guitar, unless you break a string or you need something for like a drop D tuning for a song.
Drop D is one thing and acoustic is another thing, but apart from that, it's this guitar.